Southern Biscuits. It's a family recipe that I totally enjoy trying. I'm going to introduce it to you, and I hope you will enjoy it. What we use flour, we use sugar, we use buttermilk, and sometimes when you don't have a buttermilk, I use milk with a little bit of lemon or a little bit of vinegar. So you don't have to run out to the grocery store if you don't have all the ingredients, because you can make biscuits with the things you have at home. I'm one of those cooks that like to keep a clean kitchen. So I go and I prepare everything into one area so that as I clean up, I cook and I clean up as I go. This way, if you do this at the end of your cooking, you don't have a mess. So this is why I normally put my flour on a sheet, and I will take 2 cups of flour, dump it in the bowl. Now of course I've measured the flour before we started taping, so you'll see there's 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Then I will take 2 teaspoons of baking powder and hit it with a spoon to get it all out. 1 teaspoon of salt. For some, 1 teaspoon of salt is too much, so you might want to reduce it to a half a teaspoon. But you should season the biscuits just like anything else to taste. I also use 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. The baking soda is used to balance the buttermilk that we're using in our biscuits. I also use 1/3 cup of sugar. The sugar is also something that you can adjust. My son, who also cooks, he likes to use a little bit more sugar, but it's based on your taste also. So then as you mix it all together, you want to stir it all together in a bowl. And see, look how neat my bowls are. So that's all clean. Stir it all together. And then you're going to take 1/3 cup of butter or 1/3 cup of shortening, whichever one you prefer to use. Break it into the bowl, and after you have stirred, now remember you've stirred your flours really good so that it's all mixed. You don't want to have one piece of your biscuit tasting very salty, or a little bit baking soda in another one, or baking powder. So that's where you stir it really good where it's still dry, and then put your butter in. And with the butter, I also use, if I don't have a blender, this is called, you can also use a fork. You can also take a fork, and you want it to mash it and make it look like cornmeal. So you just take your butter, and you keep breaking it up in little pieces, and just take your fork and mash away. You don't want to leave any chunks of butter in your flour, because then when you're eating your biscuit, it will have like big globs of butter where you haven't broken up your shortening really well, or your butter or your oil that you used. This might take a little bit more, but you want it to look like cornmeal, and everyone knows what cornmeal looks like. So if it doesn't look like cornmeal, keep blending. And now we're going to add our milk. We don't want to add our milk all at once. We will slowly pour a little bit at a time, mixing it lightly. Now if you add too much milk, it becomes too sticky, and if you add too little milk, it's too dry. So let's add and stir. Looking good. It smells good too. It really smells good. These are really going to be some great tasting biscuits. All done. But one of the secrets I've learned from my mother, as I mentioned, I don't like having a big mess after I finish cleaning. I take a foil and lightly wet my counter and lay the foil out, dump a little bit of flour on it, and then turn my dough, and then I roll it out. Now that I've finished laying out my foil, dusting the foil with the flour, I will now turn the dough onto the board. And then I have a little bit extra flour. I'll sprinkle onto the top. This is so when you're getting ready to mix the dough, I guess knead the dough a little bit, it won't stick to your hand. You add a little bit, make a little ball. You know, like when you're playing Play-Doh. Make a little ball, roll it, mash it just a little bit. One of the things about biscuits, you don't want to over knead it because they become tough. So you just want to knead it just enough, then you press it out with your hand. Or if you wanted to, you can roll it out with the rolling pin. But I prefer to just press it out the way I want it with my hand. And now it's ready to cut and put on the cookie sheet. Now that we've finished rolling out the dough, we'll need to cut out the little circles. Sometimes if you don't have a cookie cutter or a dough cutter, you can use a glass. And also you can use different sizes of glass, and I'm using a wide tumbler size. But if you want to make smaller biscuits, you can use a smaller glass. So we're going to cut. And also, you might want to put your glass in the flour just a little bit to coat it around the rim so it won't stick. Now I finished cutting them out, and you're going to have some leftover dough. You can also take the leftover dough and you re-roll it, mash it together again, and make some additional biscuits from this leftover dough here. Please don't throw anything away because all of this is usable. Just squeeze it together. Take it to the side. And let's place these biscuits on an ungreased cookie sheet. You don't want to stick them together too close, so give them enough room to breathe. Now we're finished cutting them out, placing them on a cookie sheet. We're going to place in a preheated oven at 450 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. Here we go. Okay, I guess it's time. That looks good. Turn off your oven. We're going to put it on a plate. Bowl. Have a little bit of butter and jelly. Ready? Now we're going to taste it and enjoy. That looks good. A little bit of butter again. And a little bit of jelly.